This episode is sponsored by Hollywood Casino at Charlestown Races in West Virginia. June's featured entertainment includes Ace Frehley on the 15th and Elle King on the 21st. Details and tickets at HollywoodCasinoCharlestown.com. Must be 21 to enter the casino floor and attend a show. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Welcome to the newest episode of Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. I'm your host, Jason Fraley, picking the brains of the top filmmakers, musicians, and artists of our time. The Kennedy Center hosts Don't Tell Seth, an evening with the Seth Meyers writers, this Friday and Saturday in Washington, D.C. I spoke with Peter Grosz, who co-hosts a group of comedians who were all former or current writers for Late Night with Seth Meyers.
Well, my name is Peter Grosz. I was a writer for a long time, and then I stopped working for them a little while ago, or not a little while ago, years ago. But yeah. I helped organize this show and help put it on. So for the purposes of this show, I'm a writer for Seth Meyers, even though I haven't held that title in a little bit.
A former member of the writing staff of Late Night with Seth Meyers, but a founder or co-founder of Don't Tell Seth. Is that fair to say? Co-founder?
Yeah, sure. Myself and John Lutz, who's another, he's a current writer. We kind of decided to put this show together to try to bring our hidden talents out from behind the shadows and into the public eye.
I love it. And we should
writers.
Yeah, and we should tell everyone, it's called Don't Tell Seth, an evening with the Seth Meyers writers. It's going to be at the Kennedy Center in D.C. here, legendary spot, June 14th and 15th, so 2 days to see it. Well, you started to go in a little bit about the idea behind it, but let's go a little further. Like, how many years ago did you actually found it, and what was the idea behind it?
We founded it this year, pretty much.
This is new.
One of the first places that we're gonna take the show. The idea behind it was just a chance to kind of try to perform live, and we saw a lot of other shows have done stuff like this. The Daily Show writers have done it. Conan O'Brien's writers have done it. We did shows that were just kind of more casual improv shows at an improv theater called the Upright Citizens Brigade in New York City. And we wanted to put together more of like a polished show with some written material that either didn't make it to the air for Seth's show, or just highlighted different things that people thought was really funny that sort of couldn't belong on Seth's show because it's very funny, but it has everything has to revolve around Seth. So This is everybody in the writing staff kind of showing off their talents.
So what's the format? Is it basically like a stand-up show where you each take turns coming up, or are you interacting with each other?
Yeah, it's a blend of, it's like a variety show where I co-host the show with John Lutz. So we come out and sort of introduce the concept of the show. We get the audience, give them a general understanding of what we're going to see, which is stand-up, which we have a couple people doing stand-up. We have improv. We have some sort of structured improv. So not like, whose line is it anyway? Like, give us some emotions, or, we're going to pretend to be in the Old West or something like that. But we have some structured improv things, including a part of the show where people can see monologue jokes like Seth would tell on the show, written sort of live on stage in front of them based on suggestions that we get from the audience. That's pretty exciting. And then sketches, either people playing characters or just doing stuff as themselves that's pre-written, and then that's sort of the blend. So it's kind of a little bit of everything.
Awesome. Do you want to shout out, name check some of the other people that are going to be at this particular Kennedy Center show?
Sure.
Some and if you could, and if it's okay if you don't know, but if you know off the top of your head, like a quick anecdote about them, or when they wrote for Seth, or any other cool things they wrote for, whatever to add, rather than just listing names. If you have a cool anecdote about them.
Yeah. So myself, Peter Grosz, John Lutz is a co-host of the show. John has written for Seth since the beginning. He played Lutz on 30 Rock when they sort of showed the people in the writer's room of the fake show on 30 Rock. John was in that. Jenny Hagel, who's a current writer for the show as well, She performs with Amber Ruffin that segment called Jokes Seth Can't Tell. And she's on the air very often with that. She's done other things for the Amber Ruffin show. Ian Morgan, who's appeared both, he's a writer for the show. He's appeared on Seth's show. He's appeared on Amber Ruffin's show. Jeff Wright does a lot of videos on TikTok and Instagram and has done videos on the show. He's a writer. Ben Warheit has been on the show often. He plays Seth's nephew on the show sometimes. He's really, really funny. Matt Goldich is a stand-up who has his own special that he put out on YouTube and is a writer for the show and has done stand-up on the show. And Allie Horde, who's been on air doing segments with Amber and Jenny and also a writer for the show. I think that's everybody. If I missed anyone, I apologize, but that should have been 8 people. So that's everybody.
Awesome. And there's no shortage of political news happening, to say the least, right now. We've never had a former president indicted, or not just indicted, convicted.
Wait, I haven't heard about this. Walk me through this.
Well, you see.
Yeah, we have enough time? Okay.
Yeah, no. Well, I don't know if I can go through all 34.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so yeah, I guess my question is tell our listeners some of the political topics that you go into on the show. I assume there's a lot of current events type stuff.
There isn't so much hard current events as much as there would be like on Seth's show, mainly because this is a show that we have done in New York a couple times. We're taking it on the road for the first time to Washington, D.C. But it's a show that kind of has pieces that are set. So we don't dive so much head first into the day-to-day things in the news, but we take a look sort of at some of the broader cultural stuff. There's some things about like the Florida Don't Say Gay bill. There's the stand-ups certainly talk about in their own acts. They talk about stuff more directly. There's a piece that sort of makes fun of extreme right-wing podcasters. But the world has so much Trump comedy. I think you'll get plenty of comedy without ever hearing his name in our show. So
you just said it. You said it.
I know, but it's not on the show. And I didn't say it wouldn't hear in the interview.
I didn't know if it was like he who shall not be named, like, yeah, exactly. Voldemort. All right, cool. Trying to think, what else do we want to say? Well, I guess I should ask, how did you meet Seth? I mean, weren't you writing for Colbert or something before?
I did write for Colbert before I wrote for Seth. I wrote for the Colbert Report years ago. But I met Seth in college, actually. He and I are old friends. We both went to Northwestern University together.
Oh, cool.
And so I've known him for over 30 years. And he's a good friend and he was the best man at my wedding. And
oh, no way.
So, yeah, we performed together in Amsterdam at a theater called Boom Chicago. And we performed at an improv theater called Improv Olympic. And so I've known him for a very long time.
So of all the material he's ever written, did he save all of his best jokes for your best man speech?
Well, I don't know if those jokes would have played anywhere else.
It's true.
Tell a joke about
oh my god, that'd be hilarious, doing a joke completely in a different setting about someone else's.
Yes. You would not tell jokes about the mustache I had when I got married on the air. But you did have some choice material for me about having a mustache at my wedding.
But wait, so are you an Illinois guy, or did you just meet at Northwestern?
We just met at Northwestern. I grew up in a suburb of New York City.
Oh, okay.
And went there for college, stuck around and did Second City and a bunch of other stuff in Chicago, and then moved back here in New York when I started writing for Colbert in 2007. And then I've been around here pretty much ever since.
So what's that? That's wild to me. Paint that picture for me. So you're like good friends in college who would eventually become best man at wedding. But like you're both writing it for different shows in New York City. Like you're writing Colbert and he's writing Seth. And
yeah, he had SNL at the time when I was writing for Colbert. He wasn't doing his show yet.
Was he doing Weekend Update at the time?
Yes, he was doing Weekend Update and was the head writer of SNL. And it was great. It was really fun. I mean, I had a bunch of other friends from Chicago who were also writing for SNL. Lutz wrote for them at the time. A friend of ours, Mike O'Brien, was working there. My friend Liz Kukowski. So there were a lot of I don't know, it was just kind of a nice, really wonderful time where we all happened to be successful and in the same city, which is very rare, and all to be working at the same time on the same types of shows. It was lovely. It was great.
So do you then go out? I'm just grinning ear to ear. I'm imagining you
Yeah,
guys all write your shows during whatever they're pre-taped or whatever. Again, well, SNL's live, but do you ever
right.
go out for late night drinks, or are you ever with him with one of you guys sitting watching, your show that you've taped, or you know what I mean? Like, do you go out afterwards and watch your shows together and compare
Oh,
notes?
sure. I mean, I went to a lot of SNL tapings just because
Right.
that's a fun chance to see a bunch of people, a bunch of friends, see a particularly fun show, and then go out and those SNL after parties last until the sun comes up.
Yeah.
So we did probably more of that, but the Colbert Report was on every day, so there wasn't so much like a special event
Right.
when that was on. But it was more just kind of hanging around and being able to, I had a kid at the time and I lived blocks away from Seth, and so he met my kid and we played at this park in the West Village, and more things like that. I think were pretty fun.
Gotcha. Was there ever a time where, vice versa, either way, two directions here of this two-way street, where a joke that you said, while just riffing with your buddy, it's made it onto his, SNL, or vice versa, where he said something and then you put it in your show and the other one was like, hey, that was mine.
No, not really. I think we probably influenced each other
Yeah.
in more subtle ways
Yeah.
than direct quotes ending up on air.
Intangible ways.
Yeah. Important ways, but little bits over a long period of time, as opposed to
Right.
one thing being said one time and getting on the air. Yeah.
Influencing each other's sensibilities more.
Yes, that's true.
Over time. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure you do crack each other up. So
Yes, I think we do, and I think there's moments that our laughs even sound the same, which I'm sure is either charming or annoying to the
yeah.
people around us, depending on
Yeah.
how they feel.
I won't ask you to embarrass them, but say something kind about maybe what you've learned that you bring to such shows like the Kennedy Center. What is something maybe you learned from a Colbert writing for him versus writing for a Seth?
Well, Colbert was different because Colbert, when he was doing the Colbert Report, was playing this character
Right.
Named Stephen Colbert, but who was not like him at all and was a sort of Bill O'Reilly-ish,
Right.
very, blowhard pundit. And so writing for that character was very different than writing for Seth, because Seth was, appearing as himself. So that was sort of different. I mean, they're both very generous bosses and fun to work for. Stephen was probably more performative. He could sing and dance and wanted to do sort of big spectacle type things. And I think Seth, it's just not his style. His style is just really focusing straight up on the jokes and the wording and the timing and the premises, and if you had a sketch idea or something. But he also put us on the air a lot, so it was very different. He came from Weekend Update, so he would try to be sort of the straight man, and have the writers come on and play characters and things like that. And with Steven, it was pretty much all the character, all him, all the time. So there were great things, about both. Very different styles.
Yeah. I mean, you can't tell I grew up watching all of this stuff. I mean, all of you guys are, and Jon Stewart. I mean, everyone, you all are voices of our generation. Conan, God, I mean, it's just voices of our generation.
That's great.
Talk about sort of how sort of that whole racket has changed. I mean, gosh, I'm thinking back when it was like must see TV. You'd stay in after college, and after Leno, you had to watch Conan, or after you had to watch Jon Stewart and Colbert. You had to watch SNL live. And talk about how now it's sort of morphed with social media and shorter attention spans. And it's almost like I feel like sometimes they're playing for the short clip to go viral. You know what I mean? Like, just talk about how the whole business has changed, the whole model.
Yeah, I mean, you've said it. It's entirely different. Nobody watches these shows live anymore.
Some people
And
do, but
yeah, that's
not
true.
hardly anybody.
No, I mean, that's actually, I think I watch them more when I'm traveling, if I'm on the road
Right.
and I'm, doing a show or something or vacation and like, oh, it's my God, it's like I'm up and it's, usually if I'm not on the East Coast, like if I'm in the Central Time Zone and it's 11:30, I know Seth is on. So I'm like, oh, I'll just actually watch him on TV. It's so rare.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think that it's I can't say it's a change for the worse necessarily because the shows are still on. They're still popular. They still hold some cultural currency and sway, and the work that's being done is really high. The
Tons of
art is
views on
really high,
YouTube or
high
whatever. Yeah,
quality.
it's still getting tons of
Yeah,
clicks. Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, I can't say that, like late night overall is like worse or anything. I think it's just a different, it's a different packaging. But one thing that's definitely very different is um, as far as the writing staffs go, they're a lot more inclusive, diversity. There's a lot more women, people of color.
For sure.
Obviously, the hosts, there's gonna be some progress made on who's hosting these shows, but the writers' rooms look very different than they did 15, 20 years ago, which is great.
Right. So more diversity in the writers' rooms, but you would like to see more on the actual hosting. I mean, so we got Taylor Tomlinson doing one, but there's not many women
Yeah.
hosting right now.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's like when somebody of this generation of hosts steps down, there will definitely be an effort, I'm sure, to find someone, a woman or a person. I mean, Amber Ruffin had a great show, the Amber Ruffin show. She wrote for Seth for years, still does. She had a great show on PCAT called the Amber Ruffin Show that was once a week, similar to Sam B had a great show,
Oh yeah.
similar to Sam B's show or last week tonight with John Oliver, and it was great. And she had it for a few years, but at a network level, yeah, maybe they'll have someone come in. But I think the overall the industry is, it's doing well. People are still finding it. They're finding funny things about it, and voices can break through. So I think it's still pretty vibrant.
Totally. It's just change. It's the same thing. It's just changed. It's not, it's late night, but it's no one watch.
Yeah,
People don't really
I
watch it
mean,
late night. They watch it during the day. It's
sure. I
early
mean, like,
morning with Seth Meyers.
I 50 million people probably used to watch Johnny Carson every night, and so
Yeah.
that's not happening anymore. But
No, but that's nothing. I mean, that's everything splintered. You go back and look at the numbers for like MASH or even Seinfeld and Cheers,
sure.
like even somewhat relatively more Friends and Seinfeld. That's more relatively recent than that. No one's gonna do those numbers anymore. Even like a game, you
Oh
look at
yeah,
like a Game of Thrones, like the big pop culture thing, and it's like a fraction of that, just because everything, no
yeah,
one, not everyone has all the different apps. So,
yeah. It's very different.
well, anyway, hey, to bring it full circle, it allows opportunity to do stuff like this, right? You can go do
Yes.
these live touring shows. Do you find that that's? Let's bring it full circle to that. Is that what you find? Do you find a lot of folks, capitalizing on your name and Seth's name, I guess in this case,
Yes.
but do live
Blatantly.
touring?
Yeah. I mean, I think the what's really nice is there's always an opportunity when you do a show live for people for them to feel like they're getting a little bit of what they had in their living room or on their phone, or whatever, in live and in person. And it's really encouraging that people still want to come out. I mean, all this stuff is always really available 24 hours a day, no matter where you are, as long as you got an internet connection, you can watch some piece of comedy or something. But people actually coming out live, they know that that's going to be a great experience, worth their money, worth getting out of the house, maybe getting a babysitter or whatever, making an evening out of it. And I've seen that across the board. I do stand up a lot just as myself,
Yeah.
unconnected to this tour, and it's people still show up, and it's really great.
That's awesome. And so not only this is the final question. So not only are you going to get all these great jokes from all these great writers, there are some faces you are going to recognize. You mentioned John Lutz in 30 Rock,
Yeah,
but we got to mention people will recognize you from Veep.
yeah,
I think you were in what, 12 episodes as Sidney Purcell. So yeah,
something like that. Yeah.
yeah, a dozen or so. So remind us, or just real quick memories. I got to ask you about Veep, that whole experience. I mean, iconic, acclaim, one of the most acclaimed sitcoms of all time. Just memories of working on it.
Yeah, Veep was fantastic. I mean, I was very fortunate to be in the first season. when they were establishing a lot of the world outside of her immediate staff. And so there were, a few characters like that. Myself, there was this guy, Brian Husky, who played a journalist named Leon West. There were some, can't think of other people, like family members of her staff, Jonah's mother or Amy's sister, where I got in early enough that they found there was a lot of utility in this scummy oil lobbyist being used as a foil or as an example of the darker side of DC, and how when you drift out of the regular politics orbit of the congressmen or senators or vice presidents, then you start to get into this shadow world of lobbyists, and how truly horrible some of those people can be. And I got to portray one of those horrible people. And the flip side is that everybody who worked on the show was great, and Julia was just a complete, wonderful person who was sort of a leader. I mean, there's the writers and directors and people who lead from that end, but she just set a great example, and it was always fun working on it. And it was, sort of this, like, to be part of the very extended family. Like, they're the nuclear family, and I'm like some cousin that comes in every once in a while, but they always treated me really great.
Awesome. Well, now after portraying those horrible shadow lobbyist worlds, you get to come perform in front of those very horrible shadow lobbyist people.
If any of them want to pay money to come see us, we're more than welcome to have them come.
Yeah, to take their money, because they always take ours for their nefarious purposes.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you so much for in all seriousness, you don't need to be a lobbyist to come to this. You can be a regular Joe in DC or Jane and come on out. It's gonna be hilarious. Don't Tell Seth, an evening with Seth Meyers writers, June 14th and 15th at the Kennedy Center. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, thank you. I hope to see you there.
Thanks so much for listening to Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. Our theme music is Scott Buckley's Clarion. Remember to give us a 5-star rating if you like what you hear. We'll see you next time.